Welcome back, everyone. Ready to sink our teeth into a new deep dive.
Always. Especially when it involves a certain count.
You read my mind. That's right, we're tackling Bram Stoker's Dracula, but maybe not the Dracula you're thinking of.
Definitely not the one hanging out on cereal boxes. We're going for the original, the Stoker version. Using excerpts from his Wikipedia article, actually.
It's a starting point, I suppose.
Proven that, trust me, there's some seriously good stuff buried in there. Gives us a real sense of the depth Stoker put into this character.
I'll admit, I was surprised. Take the name itself. Count Dracula, it's a title, sure, but it also feels kind of loaded, right?
Absolutely. Right off the bat, we're dealing with a certain level of, well, aristocracy. This isn't just some nameless creature of the night. Dracula comes with a history, a legacy, even before we meet him.
Which makes his backstory even more jarring. I mean, scholar, soldier, statesman.
Yeah.
Those aren't exactly words you associate with vampires.
And that's Stoker's genius. He creates this deliberate contrast between who Dracula was and what he becomes. It adds a layer of tragedy, don't you think?
Tragedy, absolutely. This wasn't some villain born into darkness. This was a man of power, of intellect, who made a choice, or maybe had it forced upon him, that transformed him into something else entirely.
Precisely. And that's what makes him so fascinating to unpack. It's not just the thirst for blood, it's the why, the how, the echoes of that former life that still cling to him.
Right. Like when you read about him, there are these moments where he seems almost conflicted. Like he regrets what he's become.
Exactly. He's not some mindless monster. He has moments of reflection, of cunning, even a strange sort of melancholy.
And those moments make the monstrous parts even scarier because you realize he understands the weight of his actions, the line he's crossed, and yet he continues to cross it.
A true predator. And speaking of predators, we have to talk about those powers. I mean, the guy's got an arsenal that would make a superhero jealous. But then again, there's some pretty surprising weaknesses too, like running water. Seriously.
Right. It's a bit like, dude, you can control the weather, but a babbling brook stops you in your tracks. It's almost comical.
Almost. But I think that's what makes Stoker's Dracula so compelling. He's this fascinating paradox of strength and vulnerability. He's got the superhuman strength, the ability to shapeshift into bats, wolves, even mist, but he can't just waltz into someone's home uninvited.
Wait, seriously, the whole no invitation, no entry thing is real. I always thought that was a Hollywood invention.
Nope, straight from the source. And it's such a brilliant detail because it adds this layer of choice, both for Dracula and his victims. He can't just force his way in. He has to strategize, to manipulate.
Which, if you think about it, plays into his strengths as a former statesman, a general. This is a guy used to thinking several steps ahead.
Exactly. It's those subtle connections, the way Stoker weaves together Dracula's past and present, that make him such an enduring figure.
So we've got this complex, powerful creature who can command the elements but is stopped by a stream. He's a scholar, a monster, a strategist, and a predator. Where do we even go from here?
Well, I think it's high time we delve into one of the most unsettling aspects of Dracula's repertoire, the vampire's baptism of blood. Because that's where things get really interesting. And by interesting, I mean terrifying.
Okay, vampire's baptism of blood. Just the name sends chills down my spine. This isn't your typical vampire bite, is it?
Oh, not at all. This is intimate, you know. It's this whole ritual, this forced communion between Dracula and his victim.
And it usually is a woman, which, come on, we got to talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole other deep dive we could do on the gender dynamics at play in Dracula.
Oh, another time, another time. But it's Mina, right, our protagonist, who gets put through this whole horrifying ordeal. And it's not just the physical act, is it? It's like Dracula's trying to
Infect her soul. Yeah, I get that. He wants to bind her to him, make her a reflection of his own darkness. It's messed up on so many levels.
Totally. And makes you wonder about his motives, right? Like, is it just about power, control, or is there some twisted element of, I don't know, desire there?
Right. Because he doesn't do this to everyone he turns. There's something specific about Mina that draws him in. And let's not forget Lucy.
Oh, man, poor Lucy. Talk about a raw deal. Her transformation, though, it's so different from Mina's, right? It's like
A cautionary tale, almost like Stoker's showing us the different ways this gift, if you can even call it that, can manifest.
And it's dark, man.
Right.
Really dark. But you know what else I find fascinating? The whole power thing. Like, Dracula's clearly got these amazing abilities, shape-shifting, weather control, superhuman strength, but then he's also got these weird limitations.
It's what makes him interesting, right? That duality. He's like this godlike being who can't cross running water without a major inconvenience.
Seriously, it's kind of funny when you think about it. And the no reflection thing, that always freaked me out.
Such a simple concept, So effective, right? He's literally lost his reflection, his ability to see himself as he truly is, which, come to think of it, ties into that whole idea of vampirism as a reflection of our own inner darkness, right?
Yeah. Whoa, deep. And then there's that whole needs to be invited in rule, which seems like such a bizarre quirk for a creature of his power.
But it's crucial to the plot. I mean, it speaks to Dracula's strategic mind,
Mhm.
right? He can't just barge in. He has to manipulate, seduce his way into people's lives, just like he does with Mina.
It's creepy, but it also makes him more than just a mindless monster. He's got layers, man. Layers. But speaking of layers, how about we peel back the curtain on his ultimate demise? How does Dracula finally meet his maker? So how does Dracula bite the dust? It's got to be more complicated than just a wooden stake through the heart, right?
Oh, way more complicated and way more interesting. See, in the book, it's not just one hero who takes him down. It's a whole team effort.
Like a vampire-slaying dream team.
You could say that. You've got Van Helsing with his knowledge of the occult, Mina using her connection to Dracula against him, and of course Jonathan Harker rearing to avenge, well, everything.
I guess those law school skills finally came in handy. But who gets the final blow? Is there a dramatic showdown, a silver bullet?
It's more like a silver kukri, actually.
Oh, I know.
A kukri. It's this curved Nepalese knife, and Jonathan uses it to, well, let's just say he separates Dracula's head from his shoulders. It's pretty intense.
Ouch. Not exactly how they show it in the movies?
No, not at all. And get this, while that's happening, Quincy Morris, remember him? One of Lucy's suitors.
Yeah, poor guy.
Well, he manages to lodge a Bowie knife right through Dracula's heart. Talk about going out with a bang. Literally.
The double whammy. Head chopped off and a stake through the heart.
That's got to do it, right?
His body, yeah. It crumbles into dust like you'd expect. But here's the thing, just before he completely dissolves, Mina, who's been through hell and back at this point, she catches a glimpse of Dracula's face.
Okay, this is where I get nervous. What's she see?
Anger.
Triumph.
Neither. She describes this look of peace, like pure serenity, as if in that final moment the curse was lifted.
Peace. Really, after all the chaos, the bloodshed, he finds peace in death. It's kind of beautiful in a twisted way. Maybe all those glimpses of regret, of longing for his old life. Maybe it wasn't all an act. Maybe a part of him truly did yearn for release.
And maybe, just maybe, being vanquished by the people he wronged. Maybe that was the only way he could find it.
Heavy, right. But that's what makes Stoker's Dracula so brilliant. He doesn't give us easy answers. He makes us think, makes us question what we believe about good and evil, about monsters and men.
Because aren't they often one and the same?
Exactly. And that brings us to the bigger picture, right? How Dracula has transcended the page and become this cultural icon, this symbol of everything from our deepest fears to our darkest desires.
And everyone's got their own interpretation, their own vision of what he represents.
Which is the magic of a good story, don't you think? It evolves with each retelling, taking on a life of its own. But it all goes back to Stoker, doesn't it? He gave us this incredibly layered, complex character who continues to fascinate and terrify us over a century later.
Exactly. And whether you prefer your Dracula on screen, on stage, or in the pages of a book, hopefully this deep dive has given you a fresh perspective on the Count. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we let them go?
Just this. The next time you encounter Dracula, whether you're watching a movie or reading a comic book, pay attention, look beyond the fangs and the cape, and ask yourself, what does this version of Dracula say about us?
Ooh, good one. I like that. So as we say goodbye to Transylvania for now, I think we can all agree on one thing. Count Dracula is more than just a monster. He's a mirror, a warning, and perhaps, just perhaps, a reflection of our own hidden desires. Until next time, everyone, happy reading. And try not to stay up past your bedtime too often.
Sweet dreams, everyone.